Welcome to everyone to our Capture Connect session. We kind of kicked that off with our inaugural event in December. Happy to have Michelle join again and host or be the MC of today's Capture Connect edition. And then we largely and mostly talk about kind of like data, and whom better to have talk about that than JOC. So thank you, JOC, for joining. And then obviously it's all about the restoration industry. So we have Taylor representing. And thank you for that participation. And Michelle will kind of guide us through the day, I was about to say, but it's likely not going to be a day. Let's see how many Q&As we are going to end up. Welcome to Capture Connect.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, Andreas. So I am excited to be here today. I'm Michelle Blevins. I'm the publisher of CNR, and this is a powerhouse group here to talk about benchmarking and speeding up your claim cycles. It's such a big pain point in the industry now, speeding up those cycles. So lots of questions that we're going to go through. This is meant to be as dialogue friendly of a session as possible. So please, anytime you want, feel free to drop questions into the Q&A, and I will try to ask them of the panelists as we go through. You don't have to save your questions for the end. Ask them as they're coming up. We are going to have some polls along the way to make it interactive, so every time we head into a different section of the webinar, you'll be able to answer a poll, and that's going to help kind of guide our panelists toward what we're going to talk about and the direction they're going to take their answers. So we're trying to tailor this as we go as much as possible to you. So to everyone who's here, thank you so much. I'm going to really quickly have the panelists introduce themselves. You already met Andreas from magicplan. I always have a fun time trying to pronounce his last name when he and I did a podcast. Andreas Boom, I think, is somewhat close, maybe, but I think Americans aren't maybe meant to make that sound. I don't know what it is, but Andreas, thank you for getting us going. So Taylor, why don't you go ahead and quickly kind of introduce yourself for the audience?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to start off with a short story. Several years ago, I remember having a conversation with one of our newest team members at the time, and they were working with a property owner that had just experienced a major water loss, ruined furniture, damaged floors, and they just had stress written all over their face. And I remember that team member, they quietly leaned in and they said, "Gosh, I just hope I don't mess this up." And that team member had the heart to serve, but not the tools, not the information, and not the confidence that they needed in that moment. And that conversation has stuck with me for several years. So again, my name is Taylor Carmichael, Director of Systems at Southeast Restoration. I've been in the restoration industry now for a little over a decade, and I'm honored to be a part of today's conversation. A big thank you to the vendors who invited me to speak. I'm here to talk about operational efficiency, and not just in theory, but through the lens of the contractor. And what I love most about what restorers do is we are in the bad day business. What do I mean by that? We often meet people on some of their lowest moments, their lowest points. And as a systems minded leader, our mission is to equip our team members with the confidence, with tools, with clarity that they need to walk into any loss and serve that customer with excellence. So what I hope you take away from today's webinar with this powerhouse that I'm so thankful to be alongside is operational efficiency. It is not just about saving time or cutting cost. It's about removing friction so your people can show up and do what they do best, restoring lives and not just properties. Thank you, Michelle.
Love it. All right, Mandy, why don't you take it away and introduce yourself really quick?
All right. Thank you, Michelle. I don't know how I pick up after that, Taylor. It was a great way to introduce yourself as well as what we are going to talk about today. So hello, everyone. I am Mandy Ruiz. I am so grateful to be a part of this panel today. I am representing JOC Analytics, one of the representative on this webinar from JOC Analytics. I am the Director of Business Development and Strategy, and super excited to be able to talk about operational efficiency as well as benchmarking and just be a part of the conversation to hopefully provide value to the attendees today and kind of hear from you all where you're at and be able to really answer some questions that maybe some of you all have had, or speak to some of the pain points that you're having with your business. So just very excited to be on this panel with you all today.
All right, and Mr. Kenny Brewer, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kenny Brewer. I'm the general manager of JOC Analytics. Again, I really appreciate being on this power panel of great people. I come from kind of a background of servant leadership, and I've been in this industry for only 2 years now, actually just short of 2 years, and really looking forward to the opportunity in this conversation to kind of do what I set into this industry to do, which is help people, through that opportunity to figure out their problems and figure out how we can best help them start to guide towards, some of the successes that Taylor's been through and her company and some of the other companies that we've helped solution some opportunities to find and discover some chances to succeed and grow. So I appreciate being on here.
Awesome. All right. So with that, we're going to put up the first poll. The first topic that we're going to cover is benchmarking and confidence. So let's check in on how you view your current performance and benchmarks. I'm thinking that, okay, there we go. So how confident are you that you know how your company stacks up against industry benchmarks? Are you very confident? Are you somewhat confident? Not sure? So go ahead and kind of check your answer. I'm going to give everybody maybe 30 seconds or so to take this. And just a friendly reminder, once the poll is over and we kind of go into this topic, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A. Truly, I will be watching that. And my MO is if I can ask an audience question over, kind of the pre-prepped questions we have, I would much rather have them answer your questions directly than something that we've kind of pre-prepped for. So these experts are here to help. All right, hopefully that was enough time to have people answer. We'll see if we can end this one and get the results up. Thank you to Alan, who's in the background and off camera. Thank you very much. Okay, so 40% say somewhat confident, 20% not confident, and then another 40% not sure. And I can understand that. Probably part of that has to do with if you understand industry benchmarks in the first place. So that is a good place to start. So Taylor, I'm going to toss this one to you first, since this is talking about like operational performance. So why is it critical to know how your business compares to industry averages? And, maybe give an example at Southeast, how you've done that and helped create benchmarks for Southeast.
Sure. So in restoration, our performance really is just measured how quickly and effectively that we serve our customers, right? So we benchmark key metrics like job cycle times, estimate approval rates, revenue per team member headcount, and we compare that to industry data from RIA, CNR Magazine, and other vendor partners to ensure that we at Southeast Restoration are aligned with the best in-class standards and also staying competitive.
Perfect. All right. So who from JOC wants to tackle that one? Mandy, you want to tackle it first? Why benchmarking is so important and kind of what some data points, which data points matter?
Of course. So with JOC Analytics, essentially what we do, we work with restoration companies to help them identify which problems to solve, essentially, and where their benchmarks are. So I'll go to like one of the dashboards that we provide, which is on timeframes. And or cycle times. And that helps restorers be able to understand essentially where are they from the time that they go out to do the estimate to the time that they're sending out that estimate, and being able to understand what those differences mean and how they can impact their business. So being able to help them identify those, as well as sharing the value of what they mean to what those numbers mean to their business, and how it can help them either, reduce those cycle times, as well as identify, like, okay, where's the industry standard? Where do we fall in that industry standard? And speaking to Taylor's point, being able to look at some of the reports that are out there and say, oh, we're falling, a little bit under where the industry standard is. And this is where we can go to improve those things. So having a place to track that, and also being able to use what you're tracking to help improve yourself.
Perfect. Okay. Andreas or Kenny, anything you want to add to this part and how critical it is to know where your business compares to the industry? Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, I think far too often, and this isn't necessarily a negative thing, this is why a lot of companies are super successful, is that far too often we allow our gut to tell us where we're going. And that's, again, how we got to the point of even being successful and growing a company to whatever point it is in that moment. And I think it's very important to understand how to get to the next level and make your business successful for your clients, make your business successful for your personnel, is to understand where people are succeeding and potentially falling short, just as a leader, right? Understanding what those metrics and what those comparisons to the industry as a whole is doing to understand where you can grow and put people in a position to continue to grow. So seeing those numbers rather than just having a gut feeling, I think is very important.
Perfect. Andreas, I think you're going to add something. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, building on Kenny's point, gut feel, and Taylor, you need to equip the people out in the field. That is really like the two elements that I think I want to stress. You need to understand what you're talking about. And lots of that stuff happens on site. So really having something at hand while you're there, while you're doing the job, I think is crucial to then have something thereafter to analyze and look out for efficiencies, look out for the problems to solve. And I think if we can combine those two elements, like pretty much bottom up and then top down, then it becomes really powerful. That's the only thing that I want to add.
Awesome. Okay, so Andreas, sticking with you, how have you found, because I know that you also come from a restoration background plus software now, so how can benchmarking help uncover some of the hidden strengths or weaknesses in operations at a restoration company? Like, the benchmarks, but what do they mean? How do you know what they mean?
Well, I think first of all, it's a mindset to say I've structured my work in a way that I can benchmark it. And I think almost as much as looking at the benchmark, it's important to have that mindset, right? And I think that is kind of like that first process that sets you on your path to success, right? And then thereafter, I mean, obviously, if you're in that mindset in the first place, you want to continuously improve, no? And I think those are really then indicators, the benchmarks. What are the levers you should look at and pull or push, right? I think that's how I look on to benchmarks. Is you set yourself a goal. Pretty much what was said before was Mandy. You need to see where am I and what can I put in place to improve on that?
Yeah. There are so many great industry resources now, like the RIA's cost of doing business report alone offers so many benchmarks when it comes to your financials, especially. So be sure you're leaning into the resources that everybody on the panel has been talking about so far. If you have questions on how to find those resources, you could reach out to one of us after and we can share all that info. But there's a lot of really great resources that have just come out in the last 2 or 3 years that didn't exist before. So now you don't have to go it alone. You don't have to blindly create these benchmarks. So, all right, Taylor, I'm going to bump it over to you. So how have you used KPIs and benchmarking to kind of uncover some hidden strengths or weaknesses in your operations?
For sure. So, in the wise words of author Peter Drucker, he says, "What gets measured gets managed." And so, we are huge in reporting and KPI metric tracking and benchmarking both internally and externally. It helps us at Southeast to identify what's working and where we need to improve. So if one of our teams or one of our 7 offices, if that team consistently has a higher close rate, we can study their approach and then how to replicate that at our other locations that we have. But maybe another team lags behind industry norms. Perhaps that's a signal that we need to revisit our sales processes and our expectations. Do we have a lead quality issue? Do we have a training issue that we need to consider? But that data, it replaces the guesswork and it drives targeted improvement.
Yes, awesome. Okay, Kenny, I'll toss that to you. Anything to add, or you can also punt it to Mandy, whatever you so prefer.
You know me too well, Michelle.
I
No, I think the kind of just going off of what Taylor says, the KPI piece, right? Everybody's setting goals, and it's way too easy for us to just venture off and just work, especially in this industry. Like you're grinding and you're in and out every day. It doesn't matter what position you're in, how big your company is. And so without those KPIs, we lose sight of where we're going and how to maintain those. 2 years can go by and you realize, oh man, X or Y hasn't been met. And so it's very important to have those in front of you so that you can kind of just recalibrate and say, okay, I've been grinding and running wild for the last 2 months. Like we have to make sure that we, take a look at that information and it'll dial us back and make sure that we understand what's important to start moving forward again.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mandy, you want to close us out on this one? Final thoughts?
Yes. So with KPIs and being able to track them, to Taylor's and Kenny's to Taylor's and Kenny's response, it really helps to cause a business to be intentional about the direction that they're moving in. It allows them to be intentional about how they're leading their people. It's not, we're in an industry where chaos is our norm. Well, this provides a measured chaos where it allows you to have that, but also say, okay, this is where I need to go back to. This is where I need to catch up. Because if you go through a CAT situation and, you get 100 jobs at one time and you've got people running around doing these jobs. And then now all of a sudden those jobs are they're completed, but then too often the what's next gets forgotten. And being able to have that place of reference of saying, okay, we have those 100 jobs, we close them out. Well, what happened to those jobs that we were doing before we had this loss? Where are we there? Have we collected on those jobs? Have we even invoiced those jobs? So being able to track key metrics allows you to be able to go back and say, okay, this is where we are now. This is where we were before. And, maybe now this team member is feeling overwhelmed because they had 100 jobs come through and they're managing it. Well, now they forgot that, okay, those jobs before this loss, we need to go back now and we need to invoice them. The jobs before that, are we 30, 60, or 90 out? So having those KPIs and measuring those definitely allows for you to stay on track in that contained chaos. Having a contained chaos is better than just having chaos, which chaos
Absolutely.
is our industry.
It is. And that was a perfect segue. Go ahead, Taylor. You have something you want to add?
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. Okay, that was a perfect segue because you were talking about what metrics people are tracking, knowing those metrics. So we're going to get a little meatier in this next section. We're going to have a poll that's going to come up talking about identifying. Oh, I think, can we go back one? Do the poll before on key metrics you track. Is that possible? We'll see. If not, we can do this one. Okay. What do you think, panel? Should we just do this one and see if we can go back?
The bottlenecks. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Okay,
I'm
we're going to
good.
identify bottlenecks and then hopefully go back to key metrics that you track. So hang in there. We're going to get there. So, all right. How confident are you that you know where the biggest bottlenecks are in your process? This is a really good question to ask next anyway. It makes a lot of good sense because this will help you know what KPIs to track. So, are you very confident? Are you somewhat confident, not confident, or we haven't assessed this yet? So, do you know where the biggest bottlenecks are in your processes? Weigh in on this one really quick, and then we're going to jump into the conversation. Perfect. All right. So most of the group said they're not confident. They don't know where their bottlenecks are, and some are somewhat confident. No one's very confident. So we are hitting the nail on the head with the right topics here today, I think. So, so Taylor, I'm going to kick this one to you first again. How do you know which parts of your workflow might be silently eating away at profit? Like, what are some indicators on your end of like, there's something here that's going wrong and working to identify those bottlenecks?
Sure. So with those of you that answered not confident to knowing what your bottlenecks or your inefficiencies are, I just encourage you to identify what those are because you can't fix what you can't see. And at Southeast Restoration, specifically for what our bottlenecks are, is it can be delays between job approval and work start. It can be missed follow-ups on estimates and also unclear handoffs between departments. That can quietly erode your profits. And these inefficiencies, they often don't show up until your margins have already been impacted, eroded, or even worse, that your customer trust is lost.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Andreas, I'm going to kick this to you next as we're talking about bottlenecks and inefficiencies. So how are you working to identify what's silently eating away at those profits?
Yeah, I mean, on this one, I was looking for the meat, and I'm going to get back to it. To like, I think often when you feel stuck, I think not gone deep enough, pretty much, right? You've somehow like set on your KPI, but it's superficial, or like I to me, it always comes back to like, then am I tracking the right thing, really? And am I able to track the right thing, right? We sometimes now mention this industry is chaos. Yeah, but I don't know. Kind of like only from high up, it's chaotic. Like when you're down there, it always makes sense in the moment, and you need to bridge that gap. And I think like that's my driving point. Kind of if you design your processes bottom up and kind of like try to keep those elements manageable and then actually act on those. This is I think the ideal way to kind of try and eliminate those bottlenecks from the get-go. I mean, sorry for answering your questions the other way around. Like,
That's all right.
I don't know how to identify bottlenecks from kind of like in arrears, but going forward, I think I have an idea in a way for that. Yeah,
It's all good. It's all good. Okay. So, Mandy, go ahead because it looks like you have something to say and lean in a little bit to how properly tracking your analytics is going to help kind of
Yes.
draw out these inefficiencies that might be eating away at things.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. So really and truly, once again, our industry, we're always going to have bottlenecks, right? Because we're a cat-driven, surge-driven industry. So when you start having a bunch of jobs come in from the beginning, right? A bottleneck could be you have a surge event and you've got 1,000 calls that come in. Well, if you don't have anyone answering the phones, there you go. There's a bottleneck because now you're not getting or capturing, being able to capture those calls coming in. And then let's just say you do capture those calls that are coming in. Well, now you're trying to get people out to the jobs fast enough to be able to assess what's going on. And then that continues to trickle down. So going back to Taylor and also to Andrea's point is that if you're not tracking this stuff from and you have to find a place to start. So you can use the information from previous to be able to help you figure out where your bottlenecks are, but you need to start tracking it to be able to understand that, because if you're not tracking, then you're not going to know efficiently where are your bottlenecks. And that's where data comes in. Because like I said, you're always going to have bottlenecks, but if you're not tracking them, to Taylor's point, you get to the point where now you've eroded clients' trust. And you shouldn't have to do that more than once, right? And that's where tracking data allows for you to see, all right, we had this event happen. Where are our holes? Where can we improve on? And being able to see that allows for you to go back to your teams and say, all right, we had this CAT event and this is what happened. We didn't follow up on estimates fast enough. We went out to that job, we sent out the estimate. It took us 20 days to follow up on that estimate. Now we lost that job. So how can we improve this the next time we have a CAT event or the next time we have an event? Is it that we add more staffing? Is it that, we go and we add more staffing and or we allocate our staffing accordingly? Because when CAT events happen, everyone turns hands on. Everybody is like, let's just jump and do. Well, maybe we need to organize ourselves in a way to where now we see that this is a gap. We only have these amount of people go out and do this job, because we know that if everybody's all hands on deck, well, things get forgotten about. And that's what helps you to be able to build out a process to address your bottlenecks. And then, maybe it's you're sitting on jobs for too long. Well, how do you know you're sitting on a job for too long if you're not tracking that information? If you're not seeing, okay, well, I got a $10,000 water loss, and we sat on this job for 20 days. Why did we sit on this job for 20 days? So it allows you to be able to go and start asking your leadership team, like, hey, what happened here? Tracking that allows for you to be able to see that, so that next time when you're working through these jobs, you can say, all right, we know that we should fall in with a $10,000 water loss. We should fall into being able to complete this job in, maybe max 5 to 10 days. Like, that's where we need to be. And if we're going beyond that, then we need to start asking the appropriate questions. And that's what reduces those bottlenecks in times when we do have chaos, and times when we do have these losses that are going to cause some backup in our processes. So using data to help you figure that out definitely reduces what's to happen next. So you don't know what you don't know, but if you start tracking it, it helps you figure out, this is what we don't need to do, and this is what is actually working.
Yes. Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah. If you don't mind me adding, I think to find bottlenecks is a process, right? And I believe Taylor has gone through a multi-year process refinement in order to get to the point where they drive their business off of data and just information in general, right? And so for those that have not gotten there yet, and that can be anywhere from a startup company to a $30 million company to a franchise, it's important to understand where to start. And I think you find your bottlenecks by just think of a funnel, right? I need to find somewhere to put that information, which a lot of people are using, their CRMs and their job management softwares. So putting it in there is first. Well, then now what happens? Like, how do we identify where to go from there? Well, if you have a tool of any sort, right? PSA has it, Dash has it, JobSite has it. All of these other CRMs and tools have an opportunity for you to see the information. And if there's any type of gaps, we should now, the next step is to then start identifying those gaps and start plugging in information, not even knowing where it's taking you, right? But now you start to fill in that information and understand that, okay, I'm trying to get somewhere. And step one is to provide the information to the tool. And now you can start to ask yourself the questions of, okay, with our tool, for example, there's opportunities where it highlights information that's missing and it's glaring. It's right in front of your face, and you say, I don't know to what end, but I know there's a bunch of stuff missing and it needs to be put in there, right? And so once you have that, fill all those gaps, now you can start to ask yourself the question. So now you've refined it layer after layer after layer to then be able to start asking yourself the questions of, okay, this looks weird. Why is it taking us an average of 8 days to go look at a job, right? And so now I see I have a bottleneck, right? So if you refine all those things layer after layer and just do it step by step, it's not so overwhelming. And it gets you on that path to understanding where you can make those refinements. But it's hard, again, gut feeling. It's hard to accurately make those changes if you're not developing some type of process to understand what those changes should and shouldn't be. Otherwise, we're just kind of shooting in the dark, which, again, works for a lot of people to a certain extent. It just depends on where you're trying to go.
Yep, absolutely. A lot of business coaches, I think, will tell you trust your gut, but back it up by data. What does the data
Absolutely.
say about your gut? If your gut is giving you a check, there's data somewhere to back it up, or not back it up and tell you you're crazy, but rely on the data for your decisions. Don't make an emotional decision. So I want to go back to the metrics question because I think that that's going to help fill in the gap. So here's our next poll. Which of these key metrics does your team currently track on a regular basis? Do you track cycle times, probability to close, cost to complete, AR aging, other, which you would probably have to put in the Q&A, or none of these? And you can check as many that apply. You don't have to check just one here. So select all that apply, and we'll give you guys a few minutes to weigh in on this. And this is a part, I think, where we can, like I said before, kind of get into the meat of it and figure out what, if you're not doing this yet, what are some good places to start so that you don't leave this webinar being overwhelmed on where to start with this process. So, okay, so it looks like most people are tracking cycle times, probability to close, cost to complete, AR aging. I didn't get any comments in the Q&A. So those are all really good ones to track. So Mandy or Kenny, I'm thinking I'm going to toss this one to you first because you see what restorers are tracking every day across the board and what some of the common ones are. So Kenny, I'll toss this to you first. What are some of the key metrics that you see a lot of restoration companies tracking kind of across the board as like a baseline for key metrics?
Yeah, I'm wondering if me or Mandy offered these questions or offered the answers to that last survey, because that's a lot of the ones that we typically see, right? So cycle times, obviously, probability to close, your costs. I think one that's not on there is your referrals, right? Where your job is coming from, how much you're spending on those referral types, how much time and energy you're spending on those referral types, and then what the return is on that. What's the ROI in whether it's doing program work or whether it's investing in plumbers or going door to door to agents and these things, right? How much time and energy are you putting that you can be more efficiently redirecting to something that's going to be a little bit more fruitful, or something that has already proven itself to be successful. Where are we putting our resources? So that's one that's not on there that we talk about often. I mean, there's a lot, but without overwhelming, I think those are some of the top ones, right? Cycle times, probability to close, and then where your jobs are coming from.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So Andreas, I think, go ahead, Mandy. Go ahead. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Kenny is saying, and then also to talk about the one that's shocking to me. But to piggyback off of what Kenny was saying, when it comes to referrals, I've been having a lot of conversations lately, and I think it's driven because of where the state of the industry currently is. Things are quite slow. So people are trying to figure out, restoration companies and the conversations that I'm having, they're trying to figure out, okay, well, because things are slow, where can I tap into to try to find more business, to try to innovate on where we're getting our leads from. And that's why a lot of conversations, not just with new people that we're having, but also our clients, they're really starting to dig in and look at those referral sources, because who they might have thought was sending them, some really amazing leads. They're like, well, are they really? Like, they sent us leads, but this is what the conversion rate is of these leads, or maybe the dollar amount is quite small, or maybe we're not tapping into a lead source that we really should be tapping into. And I'm seeing a trend of restoration companies investing more in business development representatives, because what their usual referral sources, or their go-to referral sources, they're realizing that, hey, we may have tapped out on that. So we need to find new business. And if you are bringing in, coming from the business development side, I'm going to tell you that if you are bringing in a business development team member, you you want to provide them a path of, okay, let me show you what has worked for us in the past. And this is where you should focus your efforts on. Because if you want to grow and grow strategically in an environment where we are slower, you want to provide them a North Star. Like, okay, this is where we were, this is what worked for us, this is where you need to go. We're wanting to look more into, commercial work. So this is where you need to put your efforts. If you don't do that, then they're going to be all over the place, and then you're not going to get the return in what you think you're going to get with hiring a business development person. So paying attention to where your best referral sources are, and the ones that are lacking, is really important if you are looking to hire business development people, so that you can provide them that guidance on where to go, and where to invest their time, not just sending them out, on the streets and, hey, figure it out. But giving them that direction is important. That's one thing that I would like. Yeah, that's really important. Another one that stood out to me on that poll is the fact that the least amount of people are paying attention to AR. Um, that is really interesting because of the state of the industry. We're saying, well, we're not getting paid fast enough. Well, if you're not tracking your AR accordingly, then that impacts how fast you're going to get paid. So that's why that one was really, really glaring to me, because that's really important to make sure that you are tracking as a business to ensure that you are getting paid in a timely manner. If you're not tracking that and you've got ARs out there that's 90 days, that's going to impact your cash flow. It's going to impact how much money your business is bringing in. So that's a really important one to make sure that you're tracking as a restorer.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Andreas, I want to continue on the sales note in a minute, but Andreas, you were going to talk about something in the last round of questions. I think that was a little bit more meaty on the key metrics to track. So I'm going to toss it to you to kind of weigh in on this, and some of the KPIs that you think are most important, and your thoughts in this area.
Well, I mean, obviously, this is, this was the stuff I wanted to talk about, or I was hinting at in the last one.
Yes.
I mean, the cycle times and providing actionable stuff to the people involved in anything. So, I mean, I always repeat, reduce the number of handoffs as much as possible, because, I mean, like, every time someone needs to pick it up again. So this is going to increase your time. That's why I'm saying, okay, bring action forward as much as possible. Like if you can define as much of your project as early as possible, that's going to help you throughout. And then obviously kind of having that really tightly knit into one another, I think that should help you eventually also in your AR aging, because I mean, if it's less people involved, if it's all clear from the start, I mean, then you're kind of you can answer any questions that come up thereafter, which is typically what draws out those times. So that's that. Yeah, I'm getting passionate about that. So I need to rein in myself, but those are really the elements to look out for. Kind of how fast can I actually move on? Have I put the people, as Taylor said in your very beginning? I mean, the people in the field, you need to equip them with the tools to kind of take actions, and that's going to speed stuff up. And I think, yeah, that is the key element from my point. You trust in your people in the field every day of kind of like earning you money, like trust them like with even more, because that's going to help you eventually. And that's my point.
I think this is like the meat of our conversation right here, and
Yeah.
it's very, very interesting. And we could probably all continue to talk for a really long time about it. As things happen, like I'm popping up with ideas and stuff. I think the most important pieces on this panel is going to be to hear from Taylor, because she's in it every day, right? And I know for a fact how deep they run through the numbers. I did want to call out though, based off of the actionable piece from Andreas, is that it's not a KPI per se, but something that people overlook often is just the tracking period, how important that is. And now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe we have an indicator on our platform that tells you how well you are tracking your information and like what your grade could be. Because what happens is if people aren't paying attention, and they're not taking the action to even plug in and track this information, they just lose out on money often, right? I've heard time and time again some of our clients saying, yeah, one of the biggest things was that we saved $60,000, we saved $20,000, we saved $120,000 because we actually got the dates and the information in time, right? And that's not just the information being put into the system, that's hitting the marks that we're supposed to with the carriers and with all of the people that we're working with in order to get paid in a timely manner, right? And or to Mandy's point, AR, I didn't even realize we were missing $130,000 job on here, right? And now it's bad debt because I forgot about it 6 months ago and it never got collected for whatever reason. So just plugging in the information and kind of scoring yourself on that and seeing that it is or is not there will just save you money and make you more efficient right off the rip.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And I like the idea of a tracker. It's like when you are in like HubSpot or LinkedIn, it tells you how complete your profile is and you get like this measure. I like it. Yeah. Okay. All right, Taylor, I am going to kick it over to you. And I want you to lean into first the points that Mandy was making, especially about the sales side. Because things are a little bit slow, people are really leaning into their sales efforts, making more investments in business development. So what are some KPIs? Probability to close, I'm sure, is one of them. But what are some KPIs you track, and how is that helping prioritize sales efforts?
For sure, sales is a laser focus at Southeast Restoration this year. We have a whole annual initiative around our sales called Engineered to Win. And one thing that we do, obviously, at Southeast is we do track our KPIs through Power BI dashboards. And as it relates to sales, the metrics that we have defined, we can tell if our sales pipeline is healthy or not. We can tell if new opportunities are actually being converted to sales. And if they're not, who do I need to have a conversation with as to why they're not? Is it a lead issue? Is it a quality issue? Is it a training issue? And also if our team is maximizing their outreach. So for example, we have a new metric that was born out of our Engineer to Win annual initiative that we currently have around all things sales to try to beef that up. But if a sales qualified opportunities, if those SQOs, sales qualified opportunities, are high, but our estimate written volume is low, that might point to a process gap or a follow-up issue that I need to have with our pre-production team. And when that's tracked consistently, those KPIs, it helps forecast our growth potential and then guide coaching conversations that we need to have with our team members. And something that Kenny said just a moment ago, just as it relates to a scoreboard, Kenny, you mentioned keeping score. The Southeast lives and breathes our data and our scoreboards. We have scoreboards for each of what we refer to as our 5 functional departments, which I'm sure most of you on this call have as well. But we have 1, market development, mitigation and emergency services, pre-production, sales, production, and to Mandy's point, accounts receivable. And we have metrics defined for each of those 5 departments and a holistic view. And we have dedicated scoreboards to each one of those, tracking their KPI metrics to where we don't call it managers per se, but to where our coaches can go and they have a launch pad and they can look at the health of their team and then determine what coaching conversations that they need to have based upon the health of those metrics for each of those departments.
I love it. Okay, so Taylor, I wanted to keep with you for a minute because you talked about how you just put a new metric in. So how often are you adjusting your metrics? How often are you maybe introducing a new one or thinking we should adjust this one or we should eliminate one? Maybe this is old school at this point. We don't need to look at that. How often do you adjust?
We are creating and adjusting all the time. Kitty and Mandy are probably going to laugh. If I say daily, I'm not lying, but we are looking at our data on a very consistent manner. You know, even Mandy mentioned the word earlier, intentional. And that is the key behind this, is to look at your metrics in your data with intentionality and with consistency. Our leadership team meets once a month and we look at the data together. And that's often times where we realize, okay, maybe a new metric or a new report, Power BI slide, whatever that looks like, needs to be born to track this next thing that we want to put a laser focus on and say a quarterly initiative. Right now it's Q3. So we knew going into Q3, our sales at the beginning of the year weren't really where we needed them to be. What we did the first 2 quarters, it didn't work. Our sales, we were under budget for the first 2 quarters of the year. So what are we going to do differently? We had that data. We could see the bottlenecks. We could see the inefficiencies. And that helped us make informed decisions on what to do next. And that's when a new metric was born. And that's when we had conversations on, now, how are we going to track that new metric? And I can't say it's all just related to that new metric, but now our sales for July are above what we budgeted for.
I love that. That was such a good example.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Andres is clapping. That was like world-class example right there. Okay. I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about improvements you can make now staying competitive 2025 and beyond. But I want to ask any of you any final comments in this section before we move on to the last section that we're on. No. All right. Okay. Final poll question. Here we go. Readiness for the future. So hopefully, beautiful. Do you feel your business is positioned to stay competitive over the next 2 to 3 years? Absolutely. Somewhat, not yet, and not sure. This is such a good and timely question. This has been, as all of everybody's hinted to, and Mandy, I think, hinted to it first, the industry is in a weird spot right now. I know Mandy and I were at an event last week, and some of the discussion is this the new normal of the industry? Is this the new volume? Is this what it's going to look like now? And do we need to adjust to a new normal? So having these metrics in place is a perfect point of being able to move forward if this is the new normal. So somebody said absolutely. I love it. Good job to whoever you are. High five. And 75% said somewhat. So that's good. We're ranking pretty high up there. That's good. Some future seekers out there. Okay. So I do have a question from the audience that I'm going to go ahead and ask before we jump into these questions. How long should an owner director wait to take action on a new data metric after tracking it, considering how variable and unpredictable the industry could be? If it's a brand new data point and they can't look back historically, do you wait 3 months, 6 months, a year to establish a reference point before making a major decision? That is a great question. So who wants to tackle that one first?
I'll start it. I'm sure everybody's gonna have some input, but I think it's important to not wait. You need to see it as it unfolds, and you should, in most cases, it won't be a new data point. It'll be a new way of seeing it, but you should have a lot of historicals that say, okay, this is what I wanted to see, and then understand how to pull those together to tell the answer that you're looking for, right? So I wouldn't wait. Yeah, obviously over time, if you have more data points, then you're going to have a little bit more accurate information, or a lot more accurate information, but you don't want to wait, especially if it's dawned on you that there is a new data set that you want to look at, and it's for a reason in that moment in time, right? So let's start looking at it now and understand where it's going and how to potentially change it as it gets to that 3 months, to that 6 months, instead of waiting for 6 months and taking zero action and then saying, okay, well, now we have our information. 6 months later, it may not be a factor, right? That our industry changes so much, to the point of that question. They said it right in the question. Our industry changes so much, you really shouldn't wait at all. And you likely do already have the data that you need in order to answer your question. You just have to figure out how to put it together.
This is going back to almost like that gut plus data, because you probably had a gut check that made you start tracking the data. So you might not have actual data in the past, but you have the data from your gut, I suppose. So Mandy, you want to round out the kind of JOC side, and then we'll toss it to Andreas?
Yeah, sure. So I would definitely say it depends on what it is that that's glaring, right? If you realize that, your data is now showing you that we dropped the ball on from the time that we, went out and inspected to the time that we were sending out an estimate, that's something you need to take action on immediately. That's something that you need to have a conversation with your leadership team and say, hey, I noticed this is a trend, or maybe it's the last month or two. What can we do differently, or what happened there? So that way we can figure out how to improve this, next month or immediately. Like, what actions can we take today with our team members that can help turn this around? Because if you're going out and estimating every single, you're sending your estimators out every single day, and you wait 6 months or a month to address this, well, that's a month longer now that those team members haven't been coached. And now you have that many more jobs that haven't been inspected, or an estimate written on. So you want to address certain like that specific instance. I would say, yeah, that's an immediate. Let's have a conversation today and figure out what can we do today to change that trajectory of where we might be in the next month or 2 months. Every day matters. Every opportunity matters. So being able to identify and pivot quickly is so important on making sure we secure opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Andreas, you want to add in your thoughts, and then we'll have Taylor round this one out?
I'll pass it over to Taylor instantly. I'm not sure what I said would add to it.
Okay, Taylor, so this was a really good question. So how quickly are you adjusting to KPIs and when the results come in or data?
Yes, I could not agree more with Kenny and Mandy. We don't wait around here. We actually aren't even allowed to say the word wait. We are proactive. Wait is on that list of bad words that we do not utilize here at Southeast Restoration. I don't know what that word even means. We don't wait. We like to say we're going to punch that in the mouth, because really, in the absence of data, again, you can't fix what you don't see. In the absence of data, negativity fills that void. So this goes back to the gut issue. I have a gut feeling, which led me to track this to begin with. And then also trust but verify. But I'm a huge proponent. If you have identified a problem, yes, our industry is chaotic and it's ever evolving, and it is unbelievably fast in the most beautiful, chaotic way. But don't wait. Go ahead and be proactive and let your insights tell a better story now that you would have that data, that metric, that new metric, to tell a better story, to make better decisions.
Perfect. Okay. All right. We are down to like the last 2 minutes. So we are going to lightning round we're going to bring this whole section into one culmination, one question here. So everybody has like 30 seconds. What do you hope people take away? Give us one key takeaway to stay competitive and maybe even move ahead of the competition when it comes to your data, metrics, KPIs, looking into the rest of 2025 and 2026. So Andreas, I'm going to toss this one to you first.
It's good. I'm an easy one. Kind of like put your people into action, equip them with the tools to actually be able to, get stuff done. And that will set you up for the future. If you have that mindset, I think then you'll find a way to adapt of whatever is coming at you.
Absolutely. People are such a critical part of the equation. There's so much technology getting thrown out there, but people are critical. Okay, Mandy, go ahead. I'm just going to go around how my screen looks. So Mandy, you're next.
I would definitely say, we're in an industry that provides we have to use a lot of software. A lot of software for our team members, a lot of software that's required by carriers to be able to perform the work, which means that there's a lot of opportunity to collect data in a lot of different places. So making sure that you have a place, in whether it's a dashboard or you're using Excel, whatever you're using, have a place to look at your data, to be able to start asking those questions of, hey, where are we? Where are we going? How are we positioning ourselves in the industry? Use what it is that you have. And if you don't have it and you're not tracking those things, hopefully this discussion inspired you to start thinking about, where are we with our data? And if you're not somewhere, it provokes that thought of, let's figure out how to get there.
Perfect. All right, Kenny, final thoughts.
Yeah, if you've ever seen me, you probably assume that I play basketball, and you're right. And I'm a fan of Nike, so I guess mine would just be to say, just do it. It doesn't matter where, to Mandy's point, where you put it, if it's Excel, if it's Power View, if it's a CRM, if it's whatever, just do it, because that's going to get you to the next step. So don't worry about how well you're doing it. Don't worry. That's how most people got into their company anyway, is just by doing it. Now take that to the next level. Just start tracking the stuff. We'll figure it all out after that.
Absolutely. All right, Taylor, round us out.
Yes, I'll be fast. Back to Kenny's point, just do it. You have to have a source of truth, wherever that is, your CRM, Excel, job management system, Power View. But the restoration industry is evolving so incredibly fast with technology, customer expectations, carrier demands are changing rapidly, and acting on today's data now, not 30 to 60 days from now, will help us to stay agile, fix those inefficiencies early and often, and then capitalize on what's working before our competitors catch up with us.
That's right. Okay, well, thank you to everyone. Thank you to MagicPlan for hosting this. This was great. It is being recorded, so everybody who is here, if you have questions, you can reach out to the MagicPlan team because there is a video copy of it. Thanks to JOC, thanks to Taylor and Southeast for being here. Bravo, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle, for guiding us through this hour. Thanks for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.